That's correct, sir. Can you read it for me, sir? I swear by the Almighty Allah.
I swear by the Almighty Allah.
That the evidence I shall give to this commission.
That the evidence I shall give to this commission.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
So help me Allah.
So help me Allah.
Thank you, sir. You can give it before the instruction.
Please state your names.
My name is Abdullah Job.
Where do you live, Mr. Job?
I live in Koroni, Woodlands.
Okay. What work do you do?
I'm an engineer by profession.
What work do you do?
I am an engineer by profession.
Are you employed?
Yes.
Where are you employed?
I'm currently employed with the OMVG in Dakar as head of division for studies and planning.
Head of?
Head of division, studies and planning.
Can you, ONVG, what does it stand for?
It's the Organization for the Management of River Gambia.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
Did you serve in the public service?
Yes, I did.
In what capacities did you serve?
I serve as engineer.
Maybe in which institution?
Yes. I started working at the GUC Utilities, Gambia Utilities Corporation in 1983 as a trainee engineer, then rose through the ranks to manager director. Then in 2004, I was appointed managing director of NAWEC from September 2004 to August 2006. Then in December 2009 to August 2010, I was reappointed as managing director of NAWEC for the second time. Then from August 2010 to March, I was appointed as energy advisor under the office of the president, but stationed at the Ministry of Energy. Then March 2011 to June 2014, I was appointed as Director General of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA. Then June 2014 to...
sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether we can send a message to stop the... Yes, you said you were managing Director General of the Public Utilities Authority, Regulatory Authority.
Yes, from 2011 to June 2014. Then June 2014 to January 2017, I was Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment.
Did you hold any management positions before 2004, before you became Managing Director?
Yes, I was the Director, Water and Sewerage Director at NAWEC. Water and Sewerage Director.
For how long?
It was for the period 1998 to 2004. And in between, from August 1998 to December 1999, I also held the portfolio of Consumer Affairs Director under the same institution.
Until 2004?
Yes.
Consumer Affairs?
Yes, Consumer Affairs Director.
Okay. What did that entail?
It related as the interlink between the institution and consumers, dealing with all consumer-related activities, both from service connections, dealing with consumer complaints, and other related issues.
When you took over as Managing Director NAWEC in 2004,
yes,
what was the status of NAWEC and what contracts were in place?
I think you had the heavy fuel contract, which was in place at the time between NAWEC and GTG.
That was the only contract?
Yes, that's the only contract I was, because it was at a time when, you know, we were struggling as an institution in terms of, you know, provision of electricity and water. So we were developing numerous projects on the electricity side as well as the water side. So in partnership with development banks. But this was one specific contract which was in place. At the time I took over as MD of NAWEC.
The GTG had contracts to install generators.
Yes.
To supply and install generators. Those had been installed by the time you took over.
Yes.
What about the transmission line for Greater Banjul area? Had it been completed, the project?
Yes, that was already
That was also completed. We have the contract which has been tendered between GTG and NAWEC for the supply of HFO, which you mentioned.
Yes.
Now, as part of that contract, GTG was expected to build tanks at Halfdai.
Yes.
During the period that you were managing director. The contract was to expire in 2007. Can you tell us anything about this?
Okay, thank you. The contract was signed, I think, in 2002 by my predecessor. But as part of management, I was aware, you know, and can vividly say that there was a markup on the agreement, a 3% markup. You know, and this 3% markup on the premium of the contract was meant for, you know, the construction of the tank in Halfdai. That was a known fact to everybody. When I took over, I was briefed also by my predecessor about the contract. Now, in the execution of the contract, towards the end of the period of the contract, we started a review of the contract to see what has been accomplished by GTG in relation to their obligations under the agreement. And then, as the managing director, we set up a committee internally, because my approach was to involve, at the time, those people that were responsible. The power supply director, Tijan, Mr. Ndur, the late Mr. Ndur, so that, and the finance director then, Mr. Baba Jajisi, to review the contract and see what has been done and what has not been done. And we then realized that the tank in in Halfdai was not constructed. So we engaged. I wrote to GTG demanding explanation why the tank has not been, you know, constructed. I think at the time, you know, this was around 2006, GTG wrote back giving explanations, you know, the reasons, and making proposals in anticipation of the expected renewal on their side of the, you know, HFO contract. So I think that's where things stopped, and at the time I was removed. And I think my successor, Mr. Jaro, came in and then continued And that's what I can say at the moment.
Okay, we don't have the letter that you wrote to GTG, but we have a letter, part of Exhibit SC89B, which GTG replied to you referring to a letter, referring to the contract, and it's written to you. Can the witness be shown Exhibit 89B, please? Letter of 11th August 2006. Can the witness be shown this document? That's a letter, Exhibit 89B, that was written to you by Global Trading Group, GTG. Do you remember that letter?
Yes, my minute is here. Dated on the 12th of August 2006. After I received it, yes, I can.
Now, in this letter, as you can see, GTG is saying that, yes, they could not build because of poor soil quality at Halfday. And they also said that they would compensate NAWEC for free storage for their HFO deliveries at the newly constructed tank farm of our sister company, Gambia Petroleum. You were removed. When were you removed exactly in 2006?
Maybe it would be interesting.
When were you removed in 2006?
I think this was on the 26th August, in the middle of the night. At
26th August, so it was the same month.
Yes.
So there was no follow-up on this letter by your management?
No, I mean, if you see my minute, it is very clear that I stated that please schedule a date for meeting urgently to discuss the HFO contract. We need to wrap up this issue next week early, and I think, there must have been a meeting in relation to this.
Did you attend a meeting in relation to this?
Yes, I want to believe that, but I cannot fully recall it because I don't have records, but I remember, making this minute and giving it to all the committee members at the time.
Did NAWEC accept the offer of compensation for free delivery?
It was on the review. As I said, before it was concluded, I was removed. So I cannot say, I don't know what my successor did.
Okay. The reason I ask is because under the HFO agreement, Global Trading Group was supposed to deliver the fuel to NAWEC. So one is curious to understand why the offer of free storage was being made. If you don't have any comments on that, then that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time, the NAWEC was they provide fuel to the ports, and it was the responsibility of NAWEC to pay for the cost of transportation during the first contract. So when we engaged GTG in 2006 and the new facility in Mandinari was constructed, then this was their proposal, as I said. So that is anybody's guess in terms of why they would want to offer free storage as a compensation, because it was a proposal from them. We engaged them, so that they could explain why, they did not comply with the provisions of the contract at the time, and this was their response.
Under the contract that we have, which is SC89A, can the witness be shown SC89A? 89. Let's see, 89 should be in the folder. All right. This is the agreement for the sale and supply of heavy fuel oil to NAWEC between Global Trading Group and NAWEC, which is the first one. Actually, it's the second one that you've just been given. There should be a B, 89B. Sorry, just one moment. Actually, it's 82B. I'll give you the agreements. SC 82B, 82A, and 82D. In that order, please. Thank you. Okay. If you look at delivery date, exhibit 82B, SC 82B.
Yes.
Okay. Clause 6, delivery.
Yes.
And 7. Okay.
Page.
So page, it's not page, clause. Look at the clause numbers. Every paragraph is numbered.
Yes.
Clause 6.
Yes.
Yes, the document I have is not paged. But if you look at clause 6, so delivery was to NAWEC tankers at Banjul Port. Yes.
Yes.
If you look at the second agreement, 89A, clause 7, the second paragraph, delivery was to be at GTG shall be responsible for offloading the cargo at Banjul Port into road tankers, including the provision of necessary hoses, in addition to delivery of HFO to Kotu Power Plant. So there's a difference in the two agreements. So you are saying that delivery was to the road tankers at the ports, and it was costing you money to bring it down to...
No, that's what the contract said.
Yes.
The 2002. What I explained is that at the time, NAWEC had their own, road tankers, which were not sufficient to deliver the product from the ports to Kotu Power Station within the delivery time that is allowed. So there were additional tankers which GTG would provide to deliver the product, and then it was invoiced to NAWEC. That's what I meant. And that is exactly, so that's different. Here, what was written in SC 89A, as you can see, is completely different, which was a contract signed by my successor, MD Jallo. But what I do know here, as contained in clause 6, specifically A and B, that is what I explained.
Were there any storage facilities at the ports?
At the ports? No, there was no storage facility. They were delivered into the tankers.
So was it going to be cheaper if they were stored in Mandinari? What was the advantage? Why was it being offered?
In relation
storage,
to...
in relation to amending the agreement.
In relation to which one?
There was an offer in the letter.
Yes.
To offset the building of the tanks at Halfdai with storage at Mandinari.
Yes.
Was it going to be cheaper if it was for NAWEC, if there was storage in Mandinari?
Yeah, but that was their proposals, which I didn't evaluate, and because by the time, we went into the details of their proposal, I was removed. So the managing director that took over from me, MD Jallo, who signed the 2007 HFO agreement, is in a better position to answer
okay,
that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Since you can't offer any further explanation. Let's move on to the IPP.
Yes.
In that sense. We will come back to the HFO in relation to the capacity charge and the energy charge.
Yes.
That was, did the capacity charge, Mr. Job, the capacity charge that was agreed under the IPP,
yes,
did it affect in any way the pricing under the HFO supply agreements? Was there any connection?
No, there was no connection between the capacity charge and the HFO, because the standard PPA, power purchase agreement, comprises of the pricing comprises of two elements. It comprises of the capacity charge, which enables the investor to recoup its investment over a period of time. And then the energy charge, which deals with the variable aspects of producing 1 kilowatt hour of electricity. And the direct relationship between the fuel is in relation to the energy charge, not the capacity charge. So the capacity...
What is the relationship? We understand the capacity charge. Yes. My question is, did the HFO agreement in any way, the pricing under the HFO agreement, impact the IPP?
Yes.
Yes. In what way did it impact the IPP?
Because that was the fuel structure which was used for the IPP.
Okay. So
that was the pricing structure.
So the 17% markup is what applied to all the energy that was supplied to the IPP.
Yes.
It also, of course, was not limited to the fuel supply to the IPP, but the fuel supply to all NAWEC other generators.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's move on to the IPP then. You signed the IPP agreement with Global Trading Group. That is correct? Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Could you tell us about the IPP? And at the time you took over in 2004, was there any IPP that applied to NAWEC? No IPP?
No.
How did this IPP come about with Global Trading Group?
Okay, Honorable Council and Honorable Chairman, if you can give me the opportunity to give you some background information before I give you the specific response to your answer, so that you have a better understanding of how the IPP came about, if you allow me.
We're here to assist the Commission. Any information you think would be useful to the Commission?
Now, in early 2000, we all knew that there was an acute supply of electricity. There were frequent blackouts and brownouts, and this was due mainly to lack of investment in generation, transmission, and distribution network throughout the value chain. Now, at the time, it was championed by NAWEC and the officials under the Ministry of Energy at different stage, Ministry of Energy, and the same officials under the Office of the President, who at the time, at alternate periods, will take over the portfolio. We decided to come up with what was the standard in the industry, to come up with reforms, to have policy changes and reform in the energy sector by opening up and breaking down the electricity value chain into generation, transmission, and distribution. And we said the best thing is, and in line with what was happening in the industry, is to encourage private sector participation in generation. And then the ministry started developing, in consultation with all the relevant stakeholders, the Electricity Act at the time, and also the Poor Act, which was the regulatory framework to regulate participation in the energy sector. Also, the Electricity Act, which made a pronouncement, or policy pronouncement for private sector participation, as I said, specifically on the generation side. And this was to rally private sector funds into the sector, and the best way was through independent power producers. So the policy and the act was enacted and ascended to by the ex-president, and then it became a law. So at the same time, you know, during the period of MD Core, we had identified the current Birkama power station as a potential site for future substations. A big site, you know, about a few years earlier, demarcated into plots. Some of the plots reserved for NAWEC power stations, and others reserved for, you know, potential IPPs. Then, at the institutional level in NAWEC, we developed guidelines, you know, to guide participation in the sector as IPPs, because at the time we have been swamped by too many unsolicited proposals. Everybody felt that it was an opportunity to come in. So we developed these guidelines, presented to the ministry, that we would advise that anybody who wants to participate in the energy sector as an IPP, you must have to follow these procedures and processes. And the principal aspect of that guideline was that you needed to present to government or directly to NAWEC a financial proposal, a financial model. You needed to present a technical proposal, a commercial proposal, and also a draft power purchase agreement in line with industry standards, so that it can be, you know, we would be in a position to at least do some pre-qualification to weed out those that are not credible. Then, at the time I took over, there was also, under the RMT project, a transmission network that was constructed on a project under my predecessor, Mr. Kaur.
What is RMT, sorry?
RMT, it was a company that constructed the transmission network. It was a French company that constructed the transmission network under an internationally tender process to run the transmission main up to the power station in Birkama in preparation for future IPPs.
That's from Kotu to Birkama?
Yeah, from Kotu. It linked Kotu to Birkama. And so everything was set up. Then in 2005, when we took over, at the same time, the Pura Act was enacted and ascended to and enforced. And it required, the regulatory aspects in terms of licensing requirements for any IPP, the reporting requirements, etc. So everything was clearly outlined in these acts. So in 2005, we were looking at the time at a proposal that was submitted to NAWEC by GIPSA, and this was Thames Energy. We were reviewing, they proposed and came through GIPSA proposing a 35 megawatts IPP. We were in the process of negotiation because some of the sticking points for that negotiation was the security package in terms of sovereign guarantee, escrow account, and other issues which were some of the main issues of our negotiations. Then around mid 2005, then we received a letter from the Office of the President forwarding the proposal, inverted commas, from GTG. And the proposal basically consisted of a draft power purchase agreement and some technical details, which was annexed to the power purchase agreement. So we wrote back to the Office of the President and said that that we had submitted these guidelines, and that this proposal does not meet these guideline requirements. So we advise that, they tell GTG to comply with these guidelines. Subsequently, we were given written to or told that you have 2-3 days to complete negotiations with GTG or heads will roll. So,
okay, if I may just stop there so that we can have some clarifications. Yes. By GIPSA, you mean the Gambia Investment Promotion and Free Zones Enterprise?
Yes.
Authority?
Yeah.
Okay. Thames Energy, who were they?
It was a company in the UK that came here.
From where? Who were they?
Thames Energy. It was one Dr. Chris Weber. He passed away. I think he's a Sierra Leonean British, and
okay.
They submitted their proposal to, as I said,
the letters that came from the Office of the President. Unfortunately, they've not been tendered. Do you happen to have a copy of?
No, I don't have.
You don't. But you're saying approximately this was in 2005.
Yes, mid 2005.
Mid 2005. Yeah. Okay. So you said you had instructions to complete negotiations with GTG
within 2-3 days, or heads would roll.
Within 3 days, or heads would roll.
Yeah.
Was this in writing?
No, it was a verbal communication.
How was it communicated?
Then through the SG then.
Who was the SG at this time?
If I remember rightly, it was Mambure.
Sorry?
Mambure Njai.
Mambure Njai.
Yes.
Okay, you can proceed.
Yes, so
Sorry, before you do. Now, in terms of your experience in the industry, is it normal for the Office of the President to write on behalf of a corporate body to forward that type of proposal, if you were to compare notes? Was that all right or in line with industry practice around the globe or even in the region?
Commissioner Hussein, thank you. Let me respond as follows. We were living in abnormal times. And at the time, I would agree with you that ordinarily for private sector participation, it would have been more ideal in my view, to have an open tender solicitation where, it's competitive and the best price, wins, so that it's for the country. Well, I mean, it was not, that's the way things were at the time.
Question is, was it just unique to this country, or from your experience, this sort of intervention by the executive to influence who you partner with happen in the region? That was the point.
I don't know in the other countries, but what I knew, I know in the Gambia, this is what happened, and I'm relating what happened in the Gambia to what I knew in the industry, reforms that were taking place at the time, and IPP,
So your guidelines, the ones that you set in terms of the right way, where did you derive them?
Based on our experience and expertise.
The practices you migrated from somewhere.
Yes,
you didn't invent them, right? They were like industry standards. Where did they come from, those guidelines?
They came from the World Bank. The World Bank had adequate literature on guidelines and standards and standard power purchase agreement and guides. These are guidelines that we use.
Okay.
And based on our experience, working in the industry. Yeah.
And there was no room for any executive influence in those guidelines? Was there any provision in case you had an office of the president that said, go with this?
No, I mean, the guidelines that we read and what we prepared did not have that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Before you proceed, just one question. At this time, did you have a ministry responsible for energy?
No, we are under the office of the president.
When you took over, you were under the office of the president. Until you left, did you have a ministry?
Until I left in 2006, we were still under the office of the president.
Okay, proceed. You were directed, so to speak, to negotiate with GTG. What happened?
So I set up a committee, the usual management committee, comprising of technical, financial, commercial, directorate, to review the submitted power purchase agreement in line with standard power purchase agreement published by the World Bank, and we then align draft proposal to those guidelines. Most of the clauses were standard clauses, of the power purchase. That is in terms of definition of terms, conditions, obligations, on the side of the seller and the buyer, the payment terms, which was something that we negotiated, confidentiality, force majeure, and all these other clauses. Then we then took our notes as a team, and then prepared.
So you took what?
We took our notes.
Notes, okay.
Our notes, in relation to the review that we carried out, and then started the negotiations with GTG. As the records shows, the negotiations were basically held between 23, 24, completed on the 25th of November 2005. And when we concluded, the main sticking points in the negotiations were the currency denominations, excess capacity payments, as well as the monthly capacity payment. Now, GTG proposed in their proposal a capacity charge of $33.3 per kilowatt. Our review, based on industry standards and benchmark, we determined, based on the fact that the generators that GTG were going to install as part of the IPP were decommissioned generators, meaning that they were used before they were brought in country, because the duration of the contract was just for 5 years, the proper 5 years. So you cannot invest in a new set at industry prices yardstick and recover your investment within 5 years. That is practically and virtually impossible for a new set. So this was their investment, it was their asset, the generators. So all we were interested in is the power that it produces, but also the capacity that they were going to charge. As I said, they said 33.3. We did our analysis and find out that, you know, based on industry standard, that the price for, you know, those kind of generators could hover anywhere between 15 to 20 US dollars per kilowatt. Okay? But as you know, we then give ourselves a leverage. The worst case scenario would be 25 US dollars per kilowatt. Worst case scenario. Then we negotiated for 2 days. He wouldn't budge. He insists that.
Sorry, who wouldn't budge?
Mr. Bazi and the GTG, the people that represented GTG in the negotiations, which is in the, I guess it's in the minutes of meeting.
That's Mr. Muhammad Bazi,
Yes.
Mr. Padi, and Mr. Terry Jahin, according to the minutes, Exhibit SC 95A. Is that correct?
So, and then finally, they agreed to reduce the capacity charge from 33.3 US dollars per kilowatt to 32.8 per kilowatt. But we did not agree. But because time was running out, we had to get back to the authority through the Secretary General, of course. And that's when, you know, you will see that the negotiations were completed on a Friday at 7:10 in the evening, because we had to spend endless hours, the 3 days, sometimes up to 10 o'clock, to do the negotiations. But we've completed, and then on the 26th, which was on a Saturday, that's when we then gathered to draft a letter to submit the minutes of meetings together with the MOU, because what he proposed in the PPA was that it was 12.6, which is almost about 25 megawatts. Okay? But then he proposed that he was going to construct the power station in 2 phases. Phase 1, generator number 1, generator number 2, to be commissioned in June 2006. 3 and 4, second phase, to be commissioned in August 2006. But then the capacity charge, as I said, we did not agree, and we prepared our report and report back to the Office of the President that we have done everything we could, you know, negotiated with it, but he would not agree to our proposal. We could not agree with his price. Then we received a letter telling us to giving approval to sign based on the 32.8 US dollars per kilowatt. But I have to explain here that the capacity charge is not just something that you apply open-ended. In the contract, there is what is called demonstrated capacity. And the demonstrated capacity, the obligation was on the side of GTG at any point in time under the terms of the contract to demonstrate, that is to show through tests that the capacity that he was charging is actually capacity that the generators are producing. So this was an implementation aspect of the contract. So then we signed the energy component of the price was based on indexation formula, which is standard, based on the specific consumption of the generators, how much fuel they use to produce 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, among other related costs. So that was not a problem. The payment was also addressed, the excess charge was also addressed, but also in the contract, there was a minimum annual power that has to be produced by the GTG. It's under clause 5 point something. And if GTG did not meet the minimum for reasons due to them, there was a penalty. So the contract had, as I said, is a standard contract. It has obligations on the side of the seller, obligations on the side of the buyer, penalties on the side of the buyer, penalties on the side of the seller. So there was total clarity. Now, then GTG, and also under the power purchase agreement, there is what is called take-or-pay, because there is a minimum capacity demonstrated that the investor will insist as a standard that 85% of the demonstrated capacity, if they produce it, you don't take it, you still pay. That is a standard for IPPs called take-or-pay. So you negotiate, he started with 90, and we were able to get it down to 85% of the demonstrated capacity. Because you have an installed capacity, which was about 25 megawatts. Out of that, 22 megawatts has to be demonstrated. And the capacity charge was based on that demonstrated capacity of 22 megawatts. So this is what the contract, then they proceeded. You see, in the contract.
Okay. I'd just like to ask you a few questions on the energy charge and the capacity charge. On the capacity charge, I'll just give you Exhibit SC95A, which I believe has
Sorry, Councillor, before that, I want to ask, there is ample evidence, including your evidence, that the generators taken to the IPP were all second-hand or used. What I want to know is, did Bazi, together with his group, pretend that those generators were new rather than used?
Chairman, Bazi and all of us knew that the generators, as far as we are concerned, the generators were used generators. That's for the IPP. That is clear. But maybe what he said to others may be different. But as far as we know, he knew that we knew that the generators were, as I said, were not new, because this was just a stopgap measure. 5 years to enable the anticipated investment that we were expecting from the IDB to come online. So you cannot invest, at the time, the yardstick was $1 million per 1 megawatt. So you cannot invest that much money, about $25 million in generating capacity and the other associated operating costs, and recover within 5 years. And we knew also that it was around the same time that in China, most of these generators that they were using during the energy crisis were available in the market for sale. You could easily go into the internet and buy those generators. So as far as we were concerned, it was clear, and he knew that we knew that it is second hand.
Yes, but were you expecting new generators?
No.
That is all.
Can you give the witness exhibit SC95?
Can I just ask a quick question as a follow-on, sorry. Mr. Job, when Mr. Fatajo gave evidence, he mentioned that the IPP plant did not meet the expectation. It's like they were generating below 80% electricity production. In that case, what should have happened to the capacity charge, just for further understanding?
Commissioner, the documents in terms of how much electricity was produced during the duration of the contract is available, because the finance people at the time were paying based on invoices submitted by GEG. Because I have to distinguish here GTG and GEG. I have to make a distinction. Because following I forgot to explain that, following the signing of the PPA, there were certain condition precedent that has to be met by GTG. And one of those was that he has to establish and register a company in the Gambia governed by Gambian laws. And that's where he registered GEG. And he was expected and required under the contract to hand over the articles of association and memorandum of associations to NAWE as evidence that he has met this. And at the same time, he was expected to apply to PURA for a license to operate as an IPP. So what Baba is saying, and as I explained earlier, that under the PPA, under I think clause 5.3.4, I think if I'm not mistaken, there is a minimum annual power that has to be produced, and that minimum amount is 163,812 megawatts hour annually. If the IPP did not meet that, then the difference between what they produce and this minimum multiplied by a factor was a penalty that had to be imposed. Now, what Baro Fatajo is saying, maybe he did the percentage calculations, but I would not want to go into that domain. What I can say is the records. And I think if you look at the amount of electricity that was produced during the period, I mean, especially during 2006 to 2009, I will give you documents, that showed, because I mean, when I came back in 2009 as MD, I requested every director at the time to prepare a situation report for me. And one of the situation report was from the finance director, then Alaji Jallo, who prepared comprehensive financial situation report, where in one of the annexes he attached how much was paid to GEG in respect of the capacity charge and the energy charge from 2006 2009. So that is something which is available. It's in record, I believe, in NOEC, as well as I have my copies, because I took copies of these things. So this is maybe in terms of percentage, maybe 80-something%, as he says, but I can say that it was not 100%.
It's not clear. So I'll ask it in a more blunt way. Could there have been penalties, but now it couldn't request for it?
I mean, that is for the MD that was there to give the answer.
Do you know if there should have been penalties? I mean, you gave us a situation that was not normal. So even if there were penalties, it's understandable that NOEC didn't have the foot to stand on to ask for that.
During whose time?
During the period Mr. Fatajo mentioned, when the production was below the 80%.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That is from 2006 to 2009, when Mr. MD Jallow was in charge.
Mr. Joe, when you represent NOEC in its entire relationship with the GTG. If every MD comes and does not want to talk about the predecessor or the successor, it will be a very difficult experience. We rely on what you know.
Yes.
We understand you don't want to say what you don't know, but institutionally, there should be records to show. We said the same thing to the finance director. Based on your governance practices, anybody coming in should be able to read literature that helps in what happened before you got there.
Yes.
So as to the best of your knowledge, do you believe there was an opportunity for penalties, but the realities didn't permit?
Commissioner Sen, let me reiterate that I can only talk about what I know when I see the documents. Okay, well, what I do know and can, say without any iota of hesitation is that in the contract there was this provision, and when I came back, remember that these generator number 1 and 2 were commissioned on the 25th of August 2005, and 2006, the next day, on a Saturday at 11 o'clock, and I was around 12 arrested and taken to Mile 2 prisons and put in the maximum security wing of Mile 2 prisons at 2:30 in the morning, kept incommunicado and charged with economic crime for standing for what I believe. And up to today, that is what I believe, and I always stand for what I believe and to say the truth and nothing but the truth. That is what I swore. And I will tell you very clearly the truth, without any hesitation whatsoever. As I said, this is what is in the provision. I came back and I told the finance director who was there with then Mr. Jallow to prepare a comprehensive financial statement financial situation report, and in the finance situation report, copies of which I have here, he's put in the annex very clearly what was paid to GEG in respect of the capacity charge and the energy charge, and the amount of kilowatt hour that was produced for the period.
In plain English, the records do not exist to demonstrate there was chance of a penalty.
I'm sorry, I cannot say that.
You haven't seen them?
I cannot say. I haven't seen it.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, I have just handed over to you the bundle of documents, Exhibit SC 95A. I believe you mentioned the minutes and the letter that you wrote to the Office of the President following negotiations. Can you confirm that those are the documents you're referring to?
Yes, they are.
Now, in the letter that you wrote dated 26 November 2005, what I find in the second paragraph, you said the negotiated base prices for the energy and capacity payment are reasonable and affordable at present benchmark costs. An indexation formula is agreed with GTG to index the fixed energy cost component and the variable energy cost component. We tried hard to push GTG to reduce their capacity payment, which we felt was a bit high, but we only managed to get it down to $32.8 per kilowatt of demonstrated capacity from 33.3 per kilowatt. When prices increases, the indexation formula are used to set the new energy price. And then there is a response from the Office of the President dated 29 November 2005, which in the second paragraph also says, I'm directed to inform you that this office has granted approval to your negotiated PPA with GTG and has taken note of your advice that and the two advices which are related to future IPPs. What I don't find is what you said, that you did explain to the Office of the President that the capacity charge was too high. Did you write another letter different from this one?
You have the, you see, since the document in the minutes of meeting, as I explained,
yes,
we explained what the capacity, what we suggested, you know, as management to be the worst case scenario, which was 25 US dollars per
I believe
kilowatt.
you mean the first two pages of the document.
Yes.
Yeah?
So all of these were attached to our letter.
That's the second page, top
Yes.
paragraph.
Yes.
The monthly capacity payment was set as 33.3 per kilowatt of demonstrated capacity. Management suggested $25 per kilowatt of demonstrated capacity, but GTG was adamant and did not want to give in on this at all. However, following some discussions and persuasions by management, GTG agreed to lower the amount to 32.8 per kilowatt, US dollars per kilowatt of demonstrated capacity.
Yes.
Yes, my concern.
Sorry, Council.
Yes.
I'm just wondering whether the exhibit SC89B is available right here.
Exhibit SC89B.
B, yeah.
The first documents that I gave you, are they exhibits 89? Yes.
Is that the contract? Let me see.
Is that 89 or 82? You have 89A.
89, 82B, 82G, 89A.
89B is here, the file, the folder. Mr. Chairman, you wanted 89B.
Okay. IPP.
Sorry, I see, it's